Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and bring you the insights that really matter. Today we're jumping into a topic that touches the hopes, really the dreams, of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. We're talking about studying in the United States. It's seen as this amazing path, but, well, lately that journey has become quite complex, uncertain even.
It really has. What we're seeing is a landscape for international student visas in the U.S. that's changing, well, rapidly. It demands a lot of vigilance from students, both current and prospective. So our goal here today is to sort of untangle these recent shifts, try to understand why they're happening, and give you, our listener, the insights you need to navigate it all. We'll look at policy changes, legal fights, and the real-world effects on students happening right now.
Okay, let's start unpacking that. The first big shock, I think, was these unexpected terminations of student status, the F-1 visas specifically. Students in places like Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, even Puerto Rico suddenly found their status terminated. And critically, with no reason given, you can only imagine the panic that caused.
Oh, absolutely. And what was striking was how quickly organizations reacted. The ACLU of Maine, for example, they jumped right in, filed a federal class action suit for over 100 students. Their stance was pretty clear. These terminations were unlawful. They described it as destructive chaos, an attack on due process. People were suddenly terrified of being detained or deported.
Yeah, that due process point seems key. The basic right to understand why something's happening and defend yourself, which seemed totally absent there.
Exactly. It highlighted this immediate forceful pushback against what was seen as a severe government overreach, and it exposed some vulnerabilities in the system itself.
But amidst that chaos, there was a positive development, thankfully. A court order came through.
Yes, that's right. A court ordered the reinstatement of SEVIS records for 133 students. A lot of them were from India, actually. This meant they could continue their studies or their OPT, the optional practical training. A huge relief, no doubt.
Okay, so OPT allows them to work temporarily in their field of study after graduating, right?
Yeah.
So reinstatement was crucial for their plans.
Precisely. And this whole situation really highlights a key legal point that lawyers, people like Charles Cook and Jeff Joseph, argued very strongly. They said, look, a SEVIS termination massively impacts a student's legal status, their ability to stay to work. Now, this ran directly counter to what government agencies were arguing in court. They tried to downplay it, calling it just a credential revocation.
A credential revocation. That sounds quite technical and minor.
Right. But it raises a question. If it's so minor, why were the designated school officials, the DSOs at the universities, the people who are supposed to guide these students, why were they often advising students to just self-deport right after a SEVIS termination?
That's a major disconnect.
Yeah.
If the school advisors are saying leave immediately, it suggests the impact is far from minor.
Exactly. The legal experts mostly agreed it does seriously impact status, so students were caught in this really confusing, unsettling middle ground.
So, okay, reinstatement happens for those 133 students. Things look a bit better, but then another twist.
Yes. Almost immediately after the reinstatements, a new memo came out from IC Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and this brought fresh uncertainty, because while the SEVIS records were turned back on, many were reactivated effective April 24th, 2025. The critical issue there is that for many, this created a gap in their record, a period where their SEVIS record wasn't active, meaning they were technically out of status.
Out of status. And that term carries serious weight in immigration law, doesn't it?
Extremely serious. Being out of status, even for a short period, can trigger what's called unlawful presence. And accumulating unlawful presence, depending on how long, can lead to being barred from re-entering the U.S. for 3 years or even 10 years.
Wow, 3 or 10 years just because of a bureaucratic gap created by this situation.
Potentially, yes, even if it wasn't the student's fault. It also creates a risk of deportation right now, and definitely makes future visa applications much harder. And this new ICE memo didn't stop there. It also laid out new, very explicit reasons why SEVIS could be terminated going forward.
Okay, what are these new grounds?
Things like failing to report your OPT employment on time, not following the specific rules of the F-1 visa, withdrawing from your academic program, and this is a big one, having your visa revoked by the Department of State, the DOS.
Right, and I think I saw something specific about that DOS revocation point in the memo.
Yes, the memo states very clearly, if the Department of State revokes a non-immigrant visa and says it has immediate effect, then SEVP, that's the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, must terminate the student's SEVIS record.
Must terminate, not may, but must. That sounds quite automatic.
It does. And it's led immigration attorneys like Greg Siston to voice concern. He worried this could open the door to more SEVIS terminations based on, quote, phantom reasons, with basically no due process for the student.
Phantom reasons. What does that mean in practice? And you mentioned a connection to the NCIC database.
Well, the phantom reasons idea suggests terminations could happen based on information the student isn't even aware of, perhaps flagged in a database like NCIC, the National Crime Information Center. NCIC is used by law enforcement nationwide. So the concern is that some flag there, maybe even inaccurate, could trigger a visa revocation and then an automatic SEVIS termination, all without the student having a chance to respond.
So the government might say SEVIS termination isn't a huge deal legally, but the DSOs say leave, and now it can be triggered automatically based on potentially hidden reasons. That sounds incredibly stressful for students.
It is precisely that disconnect and lack of transparency that's causing so much anxiety. Who do you trust? What are the real rules? It's very unclear.
Okay, moving on from the SEVIS issues, there was another major development recently, a pause on new student visa interviews.
Yes, that's right. The U.S. State Department put a hold on scheduling new interviews for F, M, and J visas. Those cover most students and exchange visitors. This started May 27, 2025. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed it. And it lasted nearly a month.
And that timing, May into June, that's peak processing time for students trying to get visas for the fall semester.
Exactly. It's a crucial window, May through August. So pausing new appointments then added immense pressure. Now, they did honor appointments already booked, but no new slots opened up.
Why the pause? What was the official reason given?
The reason stated was the development of enhanced social media screening and vetting protocols. They needed time to implement these new procedures.
Ah, the social media screening. That leads us to the big catch when processing resumed on June 18th, doesn't it?
It does. The big change is that applicants are now required to make their social media accounts public so consular officers can review them.
Public. So no more private accounts during the application review. That's a significant privacy shift.
It is, and officers have specific instructions on what to look for.
Like what? What are they screening for?
They're looking for signs of hostility towards the citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles of the United States. Also, any advocacy for aid or support for foreign terrorists, things like unlawful anti-Semitic harassment or violence, or even just a history of political activism.
A history of political activism. That seems quite broad. What if someone was involved in student government or protests back home?
That's the concern. It's broad language. And if an applicant refuses to make their accounts public, that could be interpreted as trying to hide something, potentially leading to a visa denial. And it's crucial to understand this isn't just your main social media feed. It applies to all your online presence articles you've written, posts on forums, things in online databases, and it applies to both first-time applicants and returning students.
Wow, so scrub your entire online history, basically. And there was another layer to this, too, about prioritizing certain schools.
Yes, reports emerged indicating a kind of prioritization for students heading to colleges where international students make up less than 15% of the student body.
Less than 15%. Many top universities, including Ivy League schools, have much higher percentages than that.
Exactly. So this policy, whether intended or not, could actually disadvantage students aiming for some of the most globally recognized U.S. institutions. It potentially redirects talent away from major research universities.
So let's talk about the human side of this, the real-world impact. We're hearing about significant stress.
Immense stress, both emotional and financial. Think about families like the Singhs from Jaipur mentioned earlier. They've poured huge investments, taken out loans, and now they're left wondering if sending their child is even feasible or safe. It's heartbreaking. Or students like Rahul Mehta, already maybe accepted, now asking, should I even go? Could I be deported after just one semester? That fear is palpable.
And this is happening when India has just become the #1 source country for international students in the U.S. Over 331,000 Indian students in 2024. That's a huge number.
It is. And it's why major higher education groups, like the American Council on Education, wrote directly to Secretary Rubio. They expressed deep concern, saying these policies could greatly impede students getting here on time. And worse, that it sends a message, basically, that the U.S. no longer welcomes talented students.
Beyond the message it sends, there's a concrete economic impact, too.
Definitely. International students are a huge economic contributor. We're talking nearly $44 billion pumped into the U.S. economy in the 2023-2024 academic year alone.
$44 billion. That's not insignificant, especially when policies seem to be creating barriers.
Not at all. And adding to the anxiety are these anecdotal reports popping up on places like Reddit, stories of visas being revoked for seemingly minor things, speeding tickets, parking fines. Even in one reported case, a domestic violence victim whose visa was apparently revoked after being detained by police.
For things like parking tickets, how is that justified?
The rationale often cited in these reports is incredibly broad: foreign and national security. And crucially, students often aren't notified directly by the government. They might find out through their school, or worse, during travel. This creates this background fear of silent termination, where your status could be canceled without you even knowing, potentially leading to detention.
It's clear this is sparking a lot of debate. You see comments online, some lacking empathy, maybe worried about jobs, others really emphasizing due process and the need for clarity and fairness.
Absolutely. And our role here, as always on the deep dive, is just to lay out these developments, report on the different facets and discussions factually without taking a side.
Okay, so given this really dynamic, frankly unsettling picture, let's pivot to advice. If you're an international student right now or you're planning to be one, what does all this mean for you? What practical steps can you take?
Right. Based on what we've discussed, there are definitely some key takeaways, some concrete suggestions. First, and maybe the most critical right now, stay vigilant. You absolutely have to monitor your visa status regularly. Don't assume you'll be notified directly by the government if something changes. Check with your school, check with your employer if you're on OPT. Be proactive, don't wait for problems.
Okay, vigilance number one. What's next?
Number 2, strictly adhere to all the guidelines. Be meticulous. Avoid any missteps, even things that seem minor. As we've seen, the current climate means even a traffic ticket could potentially snowball into a major immigration issue. Don't give them any reason.
Okay, so dot all the I's, cross all the T's. Makes sense. What about the online presence?
That's number 3, and it's a big one. Manage your online presence carefully. Assume everything you've posted online, anywhere, could be reviewed. Be ready to make social media public if they ask. And be very aware that past posts, likes, shares, group memberships, anything could be looked at for those signs of hostility or political activism we talked about.
That requires a whole new level of self-monitoring online.
Number 4.
Number 4 is fundamental. Focus on your academics. That's why you're there. Prioritize your studies. Make sure you're meeting all the course requirements, maintaining your grades, and complying with all the specific rules of your F1 status.
Keep your head down and study hard, basically.
Pretty much. Number 5, consult experts immediately if anything comes up. If you get any confusing notices, if you have any questions about your status, don't hesitate. Talk to your designated school official, your DSO, and get advice from a qualified immigration advisor or attorney right away.
Don't try to navigate complex issues alone. Good advice. Is there a final suggestion?
Yes, number 6 is perhaps a tougher one. Consider alternatives. If the uncertainty feels like too much, if the stress, the financial risk, the unpredictability is just too high for you or your family, it's okay to look elsewhere. The U.S. is still a top destination, but countries like Hong Kong, the UK, various places in Europe, Australia, they also have excellent universities and might offer a more stable environment right now. That's a pragmatic point. Okay, so vigilance, adherence, online caution, academic focus, expert consultation, and considering alternatives. Well, this deep dive has certainly shown that the path for international students in the U.S. is definitely more complex, more demanding than perhaps ever before. It's a constantly shifting landscape. It really requires enormous vigilance, adaptability from everyone just trying to pursue their education.
Indeed it does. And this tension, this balance between stated national security concerns and the undeniable value international students bring culturally, intellectually, economically, that's going to continue to be debated and shape policy. Understanding all these moving parts is just critical for anyone involved.
So as students navigate all this uncertainty, maybe a final thought for our listeners to ponder.
It really makes you think. What is the true cost, the long-term cost, when a country's policies create this level of widespread anxiety and instability for people who are simply seeking knowledge and opportunity? What message does that send to the world?
A powerful question to consider. We hope we've given you a clearer picture of these really intricate issues today. We wish all students out there the very best in their academic journeys, wherever they may be. Join us next time on The Deep Dive as we explore another fascinating subject.